You may be seated, thank you.
Thank you. Judge, I'm going to begin my cross by playing a video. It's marked as State's Exhibit number C for identification. It'll be item number 1AWS as identified by the by the Pasco County Sheriff's Office. On that particular exhibit, I will be playing file number 20140113131442. This will be the original export of the surveillance video from the GeoVision system, unaltered, unedited. It is the, quote, best evidence in this case. You've heard testimony about a USB key was handed over through Mr. Myers to Detective Smith because it was downloaded off-site by Eric Andrews. This is that thumb drive, and I will be playing a portion of the file number that I put on the record. It is also one of the items that by stipulation the chain of custody has been stipulated to, along with authenticity.
Authenticity.
Yes. Tough to say after all those antihistamines. Dry. And because this is the original best evidence, I had someone with more savvy than I. We actually used a write blocker so that it could be downloaded onto my hard drive so that the computer would not go back and add anything to the exhibit. So I do have the exhibit here. I do have the write blocker. Like I said, someone knows how to use this. They did that for me. So I'm going to be playing it off my computer, but you will see up on the screen the file number that I placed on the record. But for safety purposes, I prefer not to keep putting this thumb drive in and out of the computer without someone who really knows how to use this write blocker.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Okay. If I can find my glasses.
You're right on the.
Okay.
There we go. Could have been on my head, it would have been less embarrassing. Just a second. There we go. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to back it up to the very first part where Mr. Escobar was discussing and Mr. Reeves was discussing. There's a break in the recording, and it's the frame where Mr. Reeves indicated that Mr. Olson comes into the frame. This is at 13:26:24. Mr. Reeves, what I'd like for you to do is watch the screen. This is the place where you indicated that you had a difficult situation with Mr. Olson. You can see in that particular frame, that is the frame you had a discussion with Mr. Escobar about, in your opinion, Mr. Olson was coming over the seat, right?
That's correct.
Mr. Reeves, you're going to have to speak up. I know it's been a long day, but we're going to have to get this on the record. Okay, sir?
I understand.
All right. So can we start over a little bit? Because I'm all dried up with antihistamines. You've been talking for the last 4 hours, so we're just going to have to suffer through it. All right? All right. Now, let me start over. This particular frame, this is where you had a discussion with Mr. Escobar about, and you told us that you perceived Mr. Olson coming over the seat, correct?
That is correct.
All right. And Mr. Escobar asked you about the white white area in the screen. You remember that?
I do.
All right. I want you to look over there. You see that?
I do.
And then he put on a second exhibit, I believe, and it was a loop. And we had the yellow circles and the red circles, remember that?
That's correct.
All right. Now, I believe you indicated that it is at this time you believe that you were hit by Mr. Olson with something.
I was hit by Mr. Olson with something.
All right. Now, what I'd like for you to do, just like Mr. Escobar did, I want you to watch and follow the white area on the screen. Now that is you uncrossing your legs, isn't it, so you can lean forward?
It's possible, yes, sir.
There you are with your legs crossed, but that's the way you were sitting in the theater. And this is you uncrossing your legs, correct?
I do not recall crossing my legs, but it is possible.
You indicated that it was at this point in time that the reason for the movement was that you wanted to stand up.
I got hit in the face.
You indicated that the movement here was that you wanted to stand up,
Judge,
correct?
I'm going to object. That was not the location where he said he wanted to stand up. Is when his actual body is moving. There you go.
I'm going to get Mr.
But you can't ask the question on another frame, Judge. That's the problem. If he wants to get to the frame that he wants to ask a question on, then get to the frame and then ask the question. Go ahead.
Thank you. We had discussed that this is the location. We're going to change topics, but this is the location where you said that you believed that Mr. Olson was coming over the seat and you were hit with something, right?
That's correct.
All right, now we're going to go forward. I want you to watch the white mark. We're going to stop it there. You're beginning to lean forward, are you not?
That's correct.
All right. In order to lean forward, you're going to have to uncross your legs, are you not?
If they were crossed, yes, sir.
All right. Now, I believe you indicated it was at this point that you were going to stand up.
Yes, I moved forward in my seat, yes, sir, after getting struck. That's correct.
You leaned forward in your seat and you closed the distance between you and Mr. Olson, did you not?
Until I realized that's what I was doing, yes, sir.
All right. Because as we see from the frame, as we move it back, Mr. Olson is moving out of the frame as you're moving towards him, correct?
That's what the frame seems to look like, yes, sir.
All right. So he's backing up from you and you're moving towards him.
I'm moving towards him and his wife is pulling him back.
His wife is standing up, is that your testimony?
No, sir, she's in the seat next to him and she's trying to hang on to him.
And he was in the seat next to her, right?
That's correct.
And both of them were sitting down at that point.
He wasn't. He was kind of come over the seat.
All right. Your testimony is at this point, he was trying to come over the seat?
That's
13, 26, 25?
That's correct.
All right. And it's your testimony then that Ms. Olson, seated in her seat, was trying to reach out to her husband that's 6'4" and trying to what?
Well, she had been holding on to him, trying to hold him back, I assume.
While seated in her seat.
Yes.
Okay. And what part of the body was she holding on to?
Well, when he first turned, she was holding on to his arms.
All right. And Mr. Olson is a very tall, lanky individual, is he not?
That's correct.
I'm going to go forward because I know there's a break in the frames here, but I want to get to that point, then I'll identify where the break is. Now you've leaned back into your seat. Correct?
Correct?
Now, right before the frame at 13:26:35, right before that is a frame at 13:26:30. That's where Mr. Escobar pointed out to you there's some 5 to 7 seconds that there was no recording. You remember that?
I do.
All right, so now we're going to go to the frame where we first see, based on your testimony, that Mr. Olson was had moved to his right based on your testimony.
Judge, I don't want to interrupt, but I believe that the seconds were more than 5 to 7 seconds. But let the record, the court has the exhibit and can see what the second count will be.
Well, I'm at 13:26:30, and the next time is 13:26:35. All right, you ready to go, Mr. Reeves?
I'm prepared.
I'll wait for you.
I was waiting for you.
Oh, very good. This is where you indicate that Mr. Olson stood up.
Based on what I'm seeing here right now, it appears to be that, yes.
Well, you've watched this over and over, right?
I haven't memorized the time frame.
All right. Now, when we were, let me go back to the other frame, and then we're going to be done. When we compare, when you looked at those two frames, you would agree that Mr. Olson, at least in the frame, is lower in the frame than the previous frame we looked at where you said that he stood up and faced you, right? You want to see it again?
Yes. You're saying that that
Sure.
one was lower than the
Yeah,
other one?
watch it. You see, you got a reference point? Pick something out, make a reference point. Got it?
Got it.
All right, very good. We're going to go forward.
Judge, I have a feeling, okay.
No?
Can you give us a frame number?
Oh. Now, at frame 13:26:35, when you look at that frame, the head of Mr. Olson is higher than the previous frame.
Judge,
correct?
I'm going to object. There is no way that anyone can opine on 13:26:35 from that photo. There is less than a centimeter. There is less than a centimeter. How, it's an improper predicate to even lay a lay opinion on that. There's absolutely, virtually nothing showing on that frame.
There's as much showing on that frame as any others.
Well, Judge, then let's go back to the other one so we can take a look at this one versus the others. Because,
Is this cross or what?
Okay.
This is my time, right?
Judge, okay.
All right, your objection is what?
Improper predicate for a lay opinion on that limited frame at 13:26:35.
All
Go
right.
back through it, Mr. Martin, just one more time.
Sure, be happy to. At 13:26:25, I want you to look at where you believe Mr. Olson is in the frame, all right?
Judge, if I can make now, just for the record, I want to preserve for the record those two frames that we're talking about, because now we've got some timestamps here. 13:26:25, and he is saying that this right here, is nowhere close to the previous frame that he was trying to get Mr. Reeves to opine on as a layperson on who was in the previous frame. So I would object to that particular process as an improper predicate for that previous opinion.
Didn't we hear on direct examination that Mr. Reeves said, that's Mr. Olson and that's Mr. Olson?
Not on that previous frame, Your Honor.
Yes,
At no
yes,
point in
yes.
time on that previous frame
Alright.
did I even touch that.
I thought I heard him say before, that's Mr. Olson coming
Right now,
over there.
right here, on this
No,
frame.
that was during direct.
I'm talking about the other frame that he was asking the opinion. That frame, there's no doubt. I brought that frame and I asked Mr. Reeves, who is that at the same time that we see this little light and this little object, what is that? Now, if you look at the next frame that he's wanting to opine, you want to see there's no object and there is a fraction. There is a tiny, minute fraction of this particular
All right.
silhouette.
We'll overruled. Go ahead.
You have a reference point?
Yes, I do.
All right. Now we're going to 132635.
Tim,
Have a reference point?
Yes, I do.
All right. And 132635, Mr. Olson's head is higher than it was in the previous frame, correct?
It appears to be. He was moving around.
Now, when Mr. Escobar showed you the loop video, where we had the red and the yellow circles, remember that?
I do.
All right. My question is, starting at 132625, this is the loop section that you watched, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Keep watching. So about right there, right? Then it looped back with Mr. Olson being in the position that he was at 132625, right?
The times are throwing me off, but what I see on the picture is myself leaning forward.
All right. And then you lean back, right?
Right. To get away from him.
So when we talked about the loop, this is what the loop looked like, right?
Yes.
All right. But when we look at it and place it in contact, what we're really looking at is one series event where Mr. Olson is in the position that he's in, and then you lean forward, right? This wasn't what was occurring, right? It wasn't loopy like that in real life, right?
No, neither way was it loopy, but
Not loopy, but I mean the loop series. That was the video, it's a loop.
that Mr. Escobar showed is
Yeah,
that?
it kept just
okay.
playing over and over like this, right?
Right, I think so.
Okay. But when I play it backwards, that's where the loop started. It started like that, didn't it?
I don't recollect where it started.
All right, well, we'll let his exhibit speak for itself. Now, you indicated that at the time that Mr. Olson was in front of you, you don't have a recollection of the popcorn being tossed on you, right?
The second time he came at me, no, sir, I don't remember the popcorn.
Okay. And you mentioned that was the second time, and what we have here at 132625 is what you're telling us was the first time.
Yes, sir.
Now, you also indicated to us that when you returned, I want to get back to before the break. Give me a second. That's going backwards. Okay, this is you returning from the manager, right?
That's correct.
All right. And it's at this point, at some point in time, according to your testimony, you realized that Mr. Olson had put the phone away.
Yes.
All right. The use of the phone that was so disturbing to you that you went to the manager, that was no longer an issue to you, right? It wasn't being used. It wasn't out.
Right, when it wasn't out, right.
All right. Then as you sat down, I believe your testimony was that you had contact with Mr. Olson and made the statements that you told us about.
I made a statement, I had no contact with Mr. Olson.
I appreciate that because I'm not talking about physical contact. So I assume that was the reason you made that statement. I'm talking about communication contact, oral contact.
I spoke, yes.
Okay. And then you sit down, and after you made that statement to Mr. Olson, is when we have a little bit of a break in the recording, and then we see Mr. Olson turning towards you, right?
That's what we're seeing right now, yes, sir.
Right. And I believe you said that, and Judge, we've stipulated in a transcript of Mr. Reeves' statement.
Judge, what we've stipulated is to that Detective Proctor has reviewed a transcript of the statement, but there, I will tell the court and Mr. Martin as well, there are a few little areas that Mr. Reeves has reviewed and that the words are different, and that's what we stipulated to, just so the court knows that we're only stipulating to this document that Mr. Proctor has opined that those were the words that were exchanged.
Who transcribed it?
Someone at the sheriff's office, Judge.
Okay.
And then he sat down and reviewed it, and based on his reviewing of the records, I
Okay.
believe it's as accurate as it can be.
But there is some,
That Mr. Reeves will tell Mr. Martin
Okay.
when he questions him.
So did I give you a copy of that transcript?
I think we've got one here.
I have one.
May I?
This is your actual one.
Was that already admitted?
There it is. There it is.
Do we have one that's already in?
Yeah.
Madam Clerk, may I have that
Number
please? ma'am?
35.
Number 35? That's why you marked on this one. It's not my mark. Okay, I didn't want to take this stuff. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Special witness, Judge? Just read for the benefit of the next following questions. I just want you to follow along with me, all right?
Yes, sir.
And what we're going to do is, there's a page number down on the bottom right-hand corner, and then there are some numbers along the side. The numbers in bold, like page 75 and 76, that's actually the page of the report, of the Pasco Sheriff's Office report, as it was printed on 1/12/16. But we're just going to refer to the pages at the bottom and the line number. Okay, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Show any more video, just
Mhm.
sit back where you are.
Yep. Mr. Reeves, if you would go to page 4 of the exhibit, and if you would go ahead and read basically lines 20 all the way down, and then I'll have some questions for you. And just let me know when you're done.
Okay.
All right. So we're at 13/26/16, and when you described this event to law enforcement, you indicated that when you came back from discussing this situation with the manager, that as you were walking back, you noticed that Mr. Olson had put his phone away, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Then you indicated to law enforcement, beginning on line 21, I came back into the movies and the guy had put his phone away. And when I went by, I said, I see you put it away. I told the manager for no reason. In other words, I went in and ratted him out. And if he was going to put it away, I wouldn't have gone, right?
That's correct.
All right, and that's what you told law enforcement.
That's what I gave him the statement, yes, sir.
All right. And then Mr. Proctor says, right. And then you respond, line 26, makes sense, question mark, correct?
That's correct.
Then you continue with explaining the events to Mr. Proctor by saying, and he turns around in his seat and hell, that's got some ice in it. And he says something about he was answering, you're going to have to get the top, Proctor, you got it. Then on line 30, and he said something about, I don't remember if it was any of your fucking business, I was texting my daughter or something like that. Or, I'm sorry, and you stay the hell out of my face, correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. Now, when you're explaining those events to Mr. Proctor, this is you coming in at 13/26/17 after complaining to the manager, correct? Right?
I'm watching.
Okay. I need a response. That's okay. Is that you?
Yes, that's me.
Okay, thank you. And like you indicated, you took your popcorn from your wife and you sat down.
That's correct.
Okay. And it was at some point at between 13/26/16 and 13/26/20 that you noticed that the phone was no longer out, and you made that statement to Mr. Olson, correct?
I don't know the times. I made this statement before I sat down.
Okay, so before you sat down, so right here, before you sat down, somewhere in here, you made that statement to Mr. Olson.
That's correct.
All right. Then in explaining the event to law enforcement, after you made that statement, you tell law enforcement, and he turns around in his seat. And that's what we see right there at 13/26/25, is it not? He
No,
turns around in his seat, according to what you told law enforcement.
no, that is not what I see on the video.
But that's what you told law enforcement.
I told law enforcement that he acknowledged he started arguing with his wife while he was still in his seat. Immediately when I came in, the first thing that I heard him say was after I'd been hit in the face.
Okay, we're going to go back up a little bit because you might have misunderstood me,
Okay.
okay? In discussing this sequence of events with law enforcement, you indicated, and I'm going to paraphrase just a little bit, that when you came back
Judge,
from the
can I object
manager...
here for just a quick second? This video does not have the non-recording periods. Therefore, the witness is not able to actually see the non-recording periods on this video. That is a real problem. I would ask Mr. Martin, if he's going to go to a particular video, to please show those sections that are also non-recording, because obviously there's no time frame in space. If the phone recalls initially when the testimony came out, you know, the last frame is continuous, and we don't know where the non-recording period takes place, and so really it's not a true and accurate depiction of, in time, what visually one can see. That's a real problem for trying to tell a witness this is happening after this is happening without having a interim time frame of no recording, because that will tell you how many seconds lapse in between this particular film right here, which is at 13:26:25, and you know the next event. There's a period of time, and so I'm just telling the court we've got to have, you know, some reference in time if we're going to be showing this to a witness and asking him sequences.
Doesn't it show a different time?
I did, and I've been pointing out every time there's a 5 to 6 second break. I know where the breaks are, and they're very prominent on the time, because we go from 13:30 to 13:35. Been very upfront with Mr. Reeves where the breaks are. I know where they're at.
Judge,
and
let me
I've
just
been
make
putting
sure it's
them
on the record before.
It's on the record now, and you need to, yes, read the numbers.
Sure.
I've heard them several times. Objections overruled.
Okay. All right. At 13:26:18 is when you begin to sit down, and it's at some point that you make the statement to Mr. Olson about you realize he's put the phone away, right?
Yes.
All right. Then you take your seat, and you look like you're fully settled in at 13:26:21. Correct? You got your popcorn in your left hand, you're settling back in the seat.
I'm sitting. Yes, that's correct.
All right, sir. Now we're at 13:26:24, and there's going to be a break of just a couple of frames from this point on. (13:26:24), and there's a couple of frames, probably I think it was 3, and then we see frame 13:26:25. Correct?
That's correct.
All right. Now, you told law enforcement that after you had made those comments to Mr. Olson, and I'll refer you back to page 4, line 26, he turns around in his seat. Remember telling law enforcement that?
Yes, I
In the
do.
transcript, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's what we see at 13:26:25, is it not?
No, sir, it is not.
You didn't tell law enforcement that after you sat down and you made that comment to Mr. Olson, that Mr. Olson then started to come over his seat, did you? You never told law enforcement that.
I told the law enforcement, to the best of my recollection, exactly what happened when it happened.
Did you tell law enforcement that after you sat down, after making the comment to Mr. Olson, that the next sequence of events was that Mr. Olson was coming over the seat?
The next thing that I noticed was that his wife had hold of him.
When I refer you to line 26 of page 4, he turns around in his seat. That is what you told law enforcement.
That is correct.
In the sequence of events, and I'm going to refer back to page 4, again, the same paragraphs that the same lines that you were reading, 20 through 40. After you indicate to law enforcement that you made that comment, we see in the transcript on line 26, you tell law enforcement he turns around in his seat. On line 34, as you can on line 31, when you tell law enforcement that he says something to the effect, I was texting my daughter, correct?
Yes.
And that's what you told Mr. Escobar occurred right at 13:26:25. He got mouthy, he said something about, I'm texting my daughter, right? He played that for you. That frame right there.
I think we're splitting hairs. We're talking about seconds, less than seconds. This was instantaneous.
Well, we have an opportunity to now look at the statement that you made to law enforcement and compare that with the video from cops. Let me ask you this. At the time you made the statement to law enforcement, you didn't know there was a video, did you?
I suspected that there was. As a matter of fact, I mentioned to my attorneys that they needed to get the video. Most public venues do have video.
Inside a theater?
Yes, sir.
Inside a theater where no food is being served?
I think anywhere you have large crowds of people, most any responsible retail establishment would probably have some sort of camera system coming and going, or even inside. At the Gardens, we had cameras everywhere.
Sure. Would it surprise you to learn that only Theater 10 and one other theater where they actually serve food?
Is he
has
testifying
a
about
camera?
what objection? Improper predicate of his knowledge.
Response?
I asked him if it's just surprising to learn that. He can say yes or no.
Oh, go ahead.
Does that surprise you?
No, not at all.
Okay. So your statement that you would expect that there be cameras at all of the theaters at Cobb is not really accurate, is it?
It was a guess at the first place.
Okay.
It was an assumption on my part that there was a likelihood that there was a camera.
When we look at page 4, lines 20 through, goes down into page 40, and you're explaining the sequence of events. We have the statement of law enforcement turned in the seat, and then after that, you say he jumps up and he turns around. Now, can you jump up and turn around if you're already standing?
I can't.
Apparently Mr. Olson can?
I think that
I can't hear you, Mr. Reeves.
I'm working on terminology, sir. Give me just a minute. This was an interview that was conducted right afterwards. I was under a great deal of emotional distress. I may have missed a couple seconds one way or the other. It's possible. If I did, I apologize, sir.
Well, I appreciate you apologizing, but what we're looking at is this was your opportunity to explain to law enforcement what occurred for them to make a determination of whether or not you would in fact be arrested or go home to your family, correct?
Oh, that's correct, yes,
All
sir.
right. So when you're laying this out to law enforcement, this particular sequence on page 4, spoke to Mr. Olson, turns in his seat, then you tell him something about texting daughter, which we are going through, then you tell law enforcement he jumps up and turns around. So my question to you, if he's already, as you said, sitting in the seat, he then jumps up, right?
Are you saying after he says the things that he says? Is that where you're at?
No, what I'm saying is right here at frame 13, 26, 25, that if Mr. Olson is seated in his seat, but you indicate he's standing there, he's coming over the seat, he can't jump up and turn around if he's already standing.
I agree with that. So at that point, I would say he was already standing. He was trying to jump onto his seat, not out of his seat. He was trying to get over the seat. I think that may help you understand it.
So he never turned in his seat as you told law enforcement. That's your testimony today?
He turned around. Yes, he did.
And when he turned around, you told law enforcement that's when he made the statements. I'm texting my daughter.
That's when his wife grabbed him and he made a lot of statements.
All right. But you told Mr. Escobar that when he was, quote, coming over the seat, he was, quote, saying, "I'm just texting my daughter"?
When he was trying to, yes, sir.
Which is it?
Tell me where your conflict is and I'll try to resolve it, sir.
I can't do any better than I just did.
Neither can
You
I.
have him seated,
Then I
saying
can't,
words and jumping up.
then I can't do any better either.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I think we'll just move on. I want to go through some of the testimony that you provided to us this afternoon. I want to begin with your background. I want to begin with your training and experience at the Tampa Police Department. All right, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right. You indicated to Mr. Escobar that you have had training over the 27 years you were at the Tampa Police Department. And I'm going to use very loosely use of force situations, use of deadly force, use of non-deadly force when it's appropriate. Remember that line of questioning you had with Mr. Escobar?
Yes, I do.
All right. In those courses, not only when use of force is appropriate or not appropriate, you're also taught about the advantage of de-escalating the situation, were you not?
That's a common term, yes, sir.
Okay. As you put it, not upset the apple cart, right?
I may have.
Yeah, when you were talking about your duties at Busch Gardens and being in public relations and management, the part of your philosophy of Busch Gardens was the customer's always right and don't upset the apple cart. Remember that?
I thought we were talking about the police department.
I know, but I was referring you back to when you said don't upset the apple cart.
Okay. I was a little confused. You were one place and then you were somewhere else.
I understand. You're going to have to speak up just a little bit, can you?
I'm doing the best I can. I've had a sore throat for a month, so.
I think you have something in common.
Wrong class.
Or maybe not. You also indicated that part of your law enforcement training involved that you became an NRA certified firearms instructor.
That's correct. That's correct.
Are you familiar with the concept of index shooting?
I think that's a concept that was not very prevalent at the time I was involved in firearms and shooting, sir. I'm not that familiar with it.
You know what it is?
I have an idea, but no, I don't know what it is.
Shooting without looking at your sights?
Well, I've never heard it called index shooting. I've heard it called other names other than
What other names?
instinct shooting.
Okay. Is it your life experience that the human body has the ability, say if I point at that that monitor right there. I don't even have to look, I just point. But if I pretend that this was the side of my gun, I could actually close my dominant eye, and by golly, my finger's right on that monitor, right?
I think with enough exposure and experience, that can happen, yes.
Okay. Someone who has a background like yours, through training over the years, up until before this incident, going to Shooter's World and practicing, you have the ability to do that, do you not? Instinctively just point the gun and be able to hit a mass that's wide as a chest?
At one time I did. I'm not sure I still hold that capability.
All right. Relatively easy to do from 3 feet away.
Yes,
7 feet away, still not bad.
correct.
15, you got to have some experience. Agreed?
I agree with that.
All right, but the closer you are, it's just as accurate to do, I'll call it index shooting, as opposed to taking a bead down the sight and shooting center mass, right?
Instinctive shooting, or as you're calling it, index shooting, yes. The closer the target is, the more effective and quicker you can make that happen, yes, sir.
Okay.
And quite accurately.
And Mr. Olson was less than 36 inches away from you, correct?
Or closer, yes, sir.
Or closer?
Yeah.
That's 3 feet, right?
Yes, sir.
You had a discussion with Mr. Escobar about your federal proficiency license that you have to qualify each year, very commonly referred to as a HR 218 license. Remember that conversation?
Yes, I do.
Now, that particular license doesn't give you any arrest power, does it?
No license does that, sir.
All right. It doesn't give you the power to conduct an official investigation for law enforcement, right?
It does not.
You indicated that after leaving law enforcement, that you went to Busch Gardens and you made the transition from law enforcement to the private sector. Remember that line of questioning?
Yes, I do.
And you indicated that in the private sector, it was more about public relations and communications, right?
Yes, sir, I did.
And you went to some classes to gain those skills, did you not?
It helped, yes, sir, it helped develop those skills. I don't know about gaining them, but yeah, it did develop them.
All right. A continuing developing of those skills.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fair enough. And you also mentioned that at Busch Gardens, at least back then, beer kind of flowed pretty good there at Busch Gardens, right?
Yes, it did.
All right. And people would get drunk,
Occasionally, yes, sir.
unruly.
Occasionally.
All right. And you had the communication and management skills to handle those individuals, did you not?
I trained the officers and the managers and the supervisors, who the managers and supervisors are already fairly well skilled. I had just enhanced the training. They did most of it. The only time I got involved is if it was kind of an out of control situation.
Okay. I left out one area about the HR 218. You have to go and requalify every year to get that license, right?
That's correct.
And it's a 40-round course?
Yes, sir. I think it is.
And stage 5 of that course, there's a mandatory reload?
I'm not sure what stage it is, but yes, there is a mandatory reload.
Right. And the previous qualification that you did You qualified, if you will, with 2 guns, a pistol and a revolver. That's what's on your license.
Yes, that's correct.
What was the pistol?
It was a 22 Smith & Wesson. I don't remember the model number.
A revolver?
I'm sorry, the revolver was a 22. The semi-automatic was a 22. It was I think it was a Walther. I think it's called a Walther P22.
You didn't qualify with the Kel-Tec, did you, that you were carrying on January 13th?
No, sir, I didn't.
And the Kel-Tec is a .380 caliber pistol, is it not?
That's correct.
And you qualified with two 22 caliber pistol and revolver, 1 each.
That's correct.
And the 22 caliber is a lot easier to shoot than the .380, right? As far as recoil?
Oh,
Less.
yeah, and it has a wider back strap, so it takes up more space in the hand. The Kel-Tec is narrower. It's a little bit more difficult to manage.
All right. But that's what you were carrying on January 13th, 2014 at the Kel-Tec.
That's correct.
The pistol you did not qualify with.
That's correct. But I might add that the 218, when you qualify with a semi-automatic and a revolver, you're qualified with all calibers of both type of weapon.
Now, the 40-round course, you're familiar with the target,
Yes, I am.
okay? And the target is a silhouette that roughly mimics a body shape, right?
That's correct.
And points are scored in zones 4 and 5 that are basically center mass.
I don't recollect the exact target, but that's fairly accurate.
So in 1993, you retired from the Tampa Police Department, correct?
September 30th, 1993,
Then
yes,
you
sir.
began working at Busch Gardens.
That's correct.
Once retiring from Tampa PD, you lost your powers of arrest, correct?
That's correct.
Once you retire from Tampa PD, you no longer had the authority as a police officer to give lawful commands to individuals that they would have to follow, correct?
That's correct.
Once you left Tampa Police Department, individuals interacting with you could comply with your request or not comply with your request, right? They
That's
didn't have
correct.
to do what you said.
That's
like
correct.
When you were a law enforcement officer.
Well, most people didn't do what you said when I was a law enforcement officer, so it really didn't change that much.
You indicated at Busch Gardens that you made that transformation from law enforcement to the private sector, and the philosophy's changed at Busch Gardens to keep the environment safe. It was more dealing with people. Remember that line of questioning?
Yes, I do.
Let's go to January 13th, 2014. You had some discussion with Mr. Escobar about that particular day when you left to go to the movies after all the plans had been made with your wife and your son Matt. You took your wife's car, right, to the movie theater?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, inside your wife's car on January 13th, 2014 was a box of ammunition. You put that in the car?
Yeah, in all probability, yes, sir.
Okay. You put it in the car that day?
Oh, no, it could have been there for months.
You're going to have to speak up just a little bit.
It could have been there for months.
All right. In your wife's car?
Yes,
So you leave the house and you have your Kel-Tec 380 in your pants pocket with a black pocket holster.
That's correct.
And the purpose of the pocket holster is that the characteristics of the pocket holster allow it to remain in the pocket as the pistol is drawn. That's its purpose, right?
Well, that's the purpose of most holsters, most pocket holsters.
Okay.
That one I manufactured. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't.
So you drive to the theater in your wife's car with the ammunition in your car that we discussed, along with the Kel-Tec in your pocket, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. You go up to the Cobb Theater and you buy your tickets, right?
That's correct.
And you did not leave your gun in the car, right?
It was in my pocket.
You go through the doors and walk through the lobby and get your snacks and drinks, and the firearm's still in your pocket.
Still in my pocket.
Once you get your snacks and drinks, then you enter the theater tent, find your seats, and sit down, and your gun is still in your pocket.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, when you entered the theater, you were not an employee of Cobb Theater, were you?
No, I wasn't.
You were a patron that went there to have a movie experience, right?
That's correct.
No different than Mr. and Mrs. Olson. When they went into the movie theater, they went in there for a movie experience,
I would assume so, yes, sir.
along with all the other patrons in there.
That's correct.
After you sit down, there comes a point in time when I believe you indicated the previews were on, but there was a light shining in your face that you found very disturbing.
Yes.
You got to speak up just a little bit. I apologize for keep asking you, but I can't hear you.
Yes, I did.
Perfect. And this is while the previews were on, right?
I'm sorry,
The previews were on at this time?
when I was in the...
When you saw that light in your face?
Oh, yes, that's correct, yes.
Other people were walking into the theater, getting
No.
their seats?
No.
There was idle conversation with the patrons while the previews were on?
Not that I could see or hear.
And nobody else was coming in?
I saw no one else entering at that point.
Now, you indicated that because this light in your face was taking away your movie experience of watching the previews, you had contact with Mr. Olson, right?
Yes, it was distracting, and yes, I did have a conversation with Mr. Olson.
Mr. Olson didn't initiate the contact with you, right?
I wasn't offending him, sir. He was offending me. I
So-
approached him, yes, sir.
All right. And on that first contact, when you asked him and made that request, he was very rude to you, was he not?
Yes, he was.
All right. So from that point on, you kind of knew that any further contact with Mr. Olson probably get the same response, right?
I probably had some reasonable expectation of that. I was hoping that wasn't true.
Okay. But when we talked about the training and experience that you have as far as cues to look out for in particular environments, people's actions. Remember that conversation with Mr. Escobar?
Yes, I do.
And you gave the example that a church parking lot, the cues might be different than, say, a bar full of rowdy people, right?
That's correct.
All right. Now, in this particular case, we're in a theater, right?
Yes.
And Mr. Olson wasn't bothering you verbally, right?
He hadn't said
Verbally.
anything. Verbally, no.
Okay. But something about Mr. Olson was bothering you, so you made contact with Mr. Olson.
That's correct.
And that changed the environment in that theater at that point in time, did it not?
Probably minimally, yes. Okay.
And after Mr. Olson made the remarks that he did to you, you had a second contact with Mr. Olson.
Yes, that's correct.
Right. Knowing that the first contact, he was very rude, you probably expected the same rudeness on the second contact, did you not?
Well, I didn't really expect that. No, sir, I didn't.
But you had a gun in your pocket.
I don't think that's changed.
Now, in the second contact with Mr. Olson, he was rude to you. Whatever words he was saying, there was some
Right.
cussing, whatever it was, rude, right?
It was rude, yes.
All right. But for your initial contact with Mr. Olson, that environment within the theater between you and Mr. Olson would not have changed, right? It was your contact with Mr. Olson that was the precipice, if you will, for the change in the demeanor of one of the patrons in the theater.
My request to him did have an effect on him, yes.
So we've had the first contact rude, second contact rude, now
I'm sorry, I didn't get the last word. Second contact, what?
rude, right?
Oh, him, yes, okay.
Okay.
Yes.
And so now you have a third contact with Mr. Olson before you go to the manager, right?
No, I didn't. I only had 2 contacts before I went to the manager.
I believe your testimony was that you were getting up, you're saying, well, I guess I'll just have to go get the manager. Wasn't that your testimony?
That was the second contact with Mr. Olson.
So you left the theater to go talk to the manager,
Yes,
leaving your wife there alone
yes,
with the man that was rude to you once, if not twice, sitting directly in front of him.
okay,
Is that true?
yes.
Okay. Now, when you came back, as we've seen on the video and had some discussions, you knew that whatever Mr. Olson was doing that you were complaining of was no longer taking place.
That's correct.
That whole change in environment had gone back to, I'll call it normal for a theater, right?
I wasn't there, I wouldn't know about that.
All right. But Mr. Olson wasn't standing up and yelling and screaming at anybody else, was he?
Well, he was having a conflict with his wife when I left. I
A
have no idea.
conflict?
Yes, indeed.
A conflict.
Yes, indeed.
What do you mean by a conflict?
She was trying to, it appeared to me as if she was trying to quiet him down. Both times that I spoke with him.
As you were coming back in the theater?
I have no idea when that conflict ended. When I left, she was conversing with him.
You still have that statement in front of you?
Yes.
Please find in there where you told that to law enforcement.
I don't know that I told him every single thing that happened and every single second that it did happen. I told him what I could recall at the time.
Would you recall this now?
I indicated in my statement that she was holding on to him every time he opened his mouth. I said that several times, sir.
All right, we'll find that in the statement. Every time he opened his mouth, she was hanging on to him.
She was hanging on to him the first time I spoke with him. She was hanging on to him the second time I spoke with him. She was hanging on to him when he jumped out of his chair.
Page 4, line 32, 33. And this is the same thing that we're talking about. This is after you come back from the manager, and you tell Mr. Detective Proctor, he turns around in his seat, he says something about texting his daughter, and then you insert, see, and his wife is holding him back. So I sat down. See that?
I'm sorry, where were we at again, sir?
Sure, line 32 and 33, page 4.
She very well could have been conversing with him when I got back then. The only thing I noticed was him.
But that's what you told law enforcement.
Then I would
Kind of
assume.
out of context, but yeah, that's what you told them.
I don't know that it's out of context. I just don't recollect it.
Then if you go to page 7 of the transcript, lines 19 and 20, and this is, you're going to have to put it in context by reading the page before. But again, you refer to his wife was talking, whoever was with him was trying to hold him back. And this is your discussion about, if you look on page 6 and go through that, is when he was standing up and coming over the seat.
Yes,
Right.
sir. To the best of my recollection, she was trying to control him in every contact that I had with her.
Okay, but you did not tell law enforcement that prior to going to management that Mrs. Olson was restraining and trying to hold her husband back, did you?
I would have to read the whole thing again. I don't recollect.
There you go.
Okay, then make yourself comfortable, sir, and I'll read it.
Okay.
This was the first time I went? Is that
You
what you
did not
said?
tell law enforcement that Mrs. Olson was trying to hold her husband back before you went and complained to the manager. You never told law enforcement that.
Well, okay, I may not have. Then my comment on that is every comment that I made to him and every time he erupted, Mrs. Olson was trying to control him.
My question to you, Mr. Reeves, you did not tell law enforcement that Mrs. Olson was trying to restrain her husband before you went and complained to the manager.
I don't recollect right now, sir.
You didn't do that, did you?
I do not recollect, sir.
The only time you mentioned that to law enforcement was after you came back from complaining to the manager.
That's possible.
Now, you left and complained to the manager and you came back and you're returning, and we've had some discussions and we watched the video. And you indicated on direct that as you were walking back, Mr. Olson was looking at you, glaring at you. Forget your words.
I said staring, sir.
Staring. To tell law enforcement that when you came back, Mr. Olson was still agitated with you to the point that he was staring at you when you returned. That was important. And you didn't tell him that?
I would, I gave them the best statement that I could, as candidly as I could. They asked very few questions. I was fairly well convinced that this was a self-defense case, and their lack of asking questions kind of indicated that. I cover every single second of every single step that I made. No, sir, I didn't.
You didn't tell him that, did you?
I just said that.
All right. Now, when you returned, let's talk about this. Say Mr. Olson was staring at you. How do you do that?
When you stare at somebody, you look directly at them.
Did he stand up and look at you?
He was seated.
How did he turn in his seat? To his left or right when he saw you come in?
He turned his head to the right, I assume.
Turn to the right.
I don't know if he was sitting that way or if he turned his head that way.
All right. So before you get to your wife's position, as you're walking down the aisle, he turns to the right.
That's correct.
He didn't say anything to you.
No, sir.
There was no cursing, foul language from Mr. Olson, was there?
Not at that point, no, sir.
He didn't reach out and try to touch you at that point, did he?
No, he didn't.
You walked back, sat down, picked up your popcorn, sat back down in your seat with the gun still in your pocket, right?
Still there.
All right. Now we've come back and we have an environment that has changed, if you will, has kind of settled down since you returned. It wasn't as contentious, if you will, when you left.
I wasn't there, so I wouldn't have any knowledge of that.
All right, but the attitude of Mr. Olson when you came back was not the same attitude when you had contact with him 2 or 3 times before you left.
He wasn't cussing at me, if that's what you mean, sir.
Sitting there with his wife?
Yes.
All right. Now, Mr. Olson as a patient would have just as much right to have a pleasant moving experience as you would. Would you agree?
I agree.
But when you came back, knowing that Mr. Olson did not want your contact, you had contact with him again, did you not?
I was trying to do what you just indicated, which was change the environment to a more pleasant situation when I made my comment.
How was it unpleasant? He was watching the previews. He wasn't doing anything. What was unpleasant that you had to make contact with Mr. Olson?
I think he was rather unpleasant when I left. I assumed that when he stared at me coming back, it was pretty much the same.
So you took it upon yourself, knowing that this individual did not want to have any contact with you, you took it upon yourself to again have contact with Mr. Olson.
In an attempt to settle the environment, or there's several different ways to look at that, to change the environment to a more pleasant environment so that we could all enjoy the movie.
And what was it about Mr. Olson's conduct at that point that you thought that you could not have a pleasant movie experience but for you saying something to Mr. Olson?
Mr. Olson had displayed a very arrogant attitude, and one of the things that I wanted to do is it was pointed in my direction. One of the things I wanted to do was to let him know that I had no ill will. I wanted everything to be just fine. That was my intent in contacting him.
But that attitude by Mr. Olson was before you left for the manager. Not after.
And
My question to you,
your point-
after you returned from the manager, what was it about Mr. Olson's conduct that you felt that you had to contact him? He wasn't bothering you.
I believe I made that fairly clear, didn't I? Did you not understand that I was trying to settle down? If there was any hurt feelings, I was trying to resolve them or end them so that he could enjoy his movie and I could enjoy my movie.
And what indication did Mr. Olson give you that he needed that type of...
The stare when I came in, it
Stare.
appeared to me, if someone looks at you like that, it appears as if they still are agitated. I guess that would be the word.
Okay, that same stare that you did not tell law enforcement about.
That's the same one, yes, sir.
All right. And what you just placed a significant importance to, that you wanted to settle things down between Mr. Olson, but you didn't tell that to law enforcement, did you?
Judge, I'm going to object. This has been, I've been very lenient. This is about the 6th or 7th time that he's gone over the same exact question.
Now
That's
he's,
an answer.
now he's placed some significance and importance to it of what he wanted to do. So I think that I have a right to explore that. Before, he just said, no, I didn't do it. Now he's explaining the importance to it. So I think I have a right to cover that. Just briefly, I'm not going for another 5 minutes on it.
All right, there is a little bit difference
All right.
to it, but I'll overrule, but let's
Right.
not beat it to death.
I understand. You did not tell law enforcement that Mr. Olson stared at you and the significance that you placed on that stare as to the reason that you wanted to make that comment to Mr. Olson? You didn't tell law enforcement why you made that comment, did you?
I didn't mention it to law enforcement because it wasn't that important in the overall scheme of things.
But it was important to you that afternoon as you walked by that you had to make a comment to Mr. Olson. It was important to you then. Why wasn't it important 2 hours later when you're being interviewed by the police department?
I'm not sure it was important the first time. It was something I felt that was the right thing for me to do.
And before I'd gone through with the video, your testimony at that point that you were struck by something in the head.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
And you pointed out to the court the pictures that you've been shown by Mr. Escobar, and I believe the one from the booking, you looked at that picture and said, oh, I can see some swelling there. Remember that?
Well, I said I could see a little swelling there. Yeah, I don't see a big deal.
You had no injuries to your cheeks or eye sockets, did you?
I had bruising to my eye socket and the eye.
You had a little red mark on your eyelid from rubbing it.
I had a bruise on my eye socket from getting hit, and I had a scratch of some sort on my eyeball. So the fire department rinsed it out with something, made it feel a little bit better. A couple days later, it was okay. It took about maybe 2 weeks for the socket to not be sore.
Right. A bruise, like a black eye?
I think you would call it a bruise. I don't really bruise on my face. It kind of turns like yellowish looking rather than a bruise.
Right. And you were photographed by the investigator from Mr. Escobar's office, were you not?
That's correct.
Were you shown any of those photographs today here in court?
No, I wasn't.
And those photographs were taken while that, quote, little bruise was still there?
I don't recollect. I think it was probably after that. It wasn't really it was difficult to see. It was more sore than visible.
But you told your lawyers, hey, come look, I got a bruise on my face. Let's document this, right?
Judge, we weren't retained yet. I think he's assuming facts that certainly are not in evidence.
Well, what's not in evidence when he was retained? We've gone over with the video as far as the sequence of events. The video speaks for itself. Your statement speaks for itself. I'm just checking my notes, Judge. You watched the video that Mr. Escobar played for you. When you fired your pistol, this is my share. You were in your chair. Remember the video?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And you were seated, and I'm just going to pretend these are armrests, but your arms by your side, right?
Correct.
All right. And as you fired the pistol, you leaned straight across and fired. That's what the video shows.
Not that far.
This far.
And my arm was not fully extended either.
Like that?
We're getting closer.
Like that?
Close. That's good. That's close enough.
And you were leaned forward.
Slightly.
All right.
And it was off to the right.
Okay.
There you
All right, here we go. Then, as the gun fired, after the shot, you're continuing to lean forward, and then you straighten out your arm.
go. I don't recollect that part.
Well, that's frustration
Totally
is that I can't talk anymore and I can hardly swallow. I'm more frustrated with myself because I'm sick. So let's not go beyond that. And I'm almost finished up. A lot easier when I were ahead of loaded. Oops. All right. We're at State's Exhibit for Marker Identification C. We're playing an excerpt from file number 20140113131442 that is on the USB drive identified by the Sheriff's Office as 1AWS. We're at 132637 at the time, and I'm going to move it forward. Now at that point, oh, what happened to the screen here? Oh, I got to turn it on. Sorry.
Just have to.
There we go. We're at 1326:37. I'm just going to play a little bit so you can kind of get a reference. Good enough? You know where we're at?
That's right after he hits me with the popcorn bag?
There you go. All right.
Okay.
Now, what we see over in the this is you, correct?
I think so, yes.
And that's Mr. Olson's hand?
I think so,
And that's your wife?
yes.
Okay. Now, as we bring it forward, once you watch Mr. Olson's hand, it continues to move out frame, correct? You see it?
I see it moving, right.
Okay. But as I go forward, it's moving away from you, correct?
It appears to be, yes.
All right, and you're leaning forward. See it?
I see it.
All right. Now, at this point, you already have your firearm out, do you not?
We'll know in just a second.
Sure, I'm going to help you out just a little bit. See your hand right there?
Okay.
Now, that's right in front of your wife's face, so if I bring it so her head is blocking your hand, the gun was out at that point, right? Has to be, right?
It appears to be, yes,
For
sir.
it to be there
Yes,
at 1326:37,
right.
you just bring it back one frame, it has to be out, correct?
Yes,
All right, go back 3 frames, do you see Mr. Olson's hand?
yes.
All right. As you're leaning forward and your gun is always out, Mr. Olson's hand is going away from you, is it not?
It appears to be, yes, sir.
All right. And at that point, your gun is out and you're beginning to lean forward, right?
It appears that way, yes, sir.
You see it?
Yes.
All right. And another frame, at that point, the gun is out. Right? See it?
Yes, yes.
Now, the next frame is when we see the reflection, if you will, of the chamber becoming hot with the firing of the gun. So either the gun was fired there or there, but somewhere right in there, that gun was fired.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And then after the gun is fired, you continue, do you not, to press the gun forward straight across over the back of that seat.
It appears to be, yes, sir.
All right. Now, when we talked about index shooting, and you're sitting there and you see the center mass of Mr. Olson, and you point that gun, because you didn't look at your sights, did you?
No,
All right. You pointed that gun at center mass of Mr. Olson, did you not?
that's exactly right, yes, sir.
All right. And you were looking straight into the eyes of Mr. Olson, were you not?
My left eye was closed, I believe. I later found out it was watering a lot. My right eye was open for sure.
All right. But you were not looking down your sights like we talked about.
No, it was instinct shooting. Absolutely.
Instinct shooting.
Yes.
All right. In order for instinct shooting to be accurate, whether it be from 3 feet or 7, you have to keep an eye, if you will, on the center mass that you want to hit, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And that's what you did in this particular case.
Most likely.
All right. As you're leaning forward, you're keeping your eye on the center mass of Mr. Olson, which is the broadest part right here in his chest. That's what you're taught, right?
That's correct.
This is the broadest part of a human body, right underneath the armpit.
That's correct.
And as you bring the gun forward, it's going straight across the top of that seat, is it not? That's what happened.
It appears to be, yes, sir.
Well, but that's what happened, right?
After the shot was fired,
You just went straight across, right?
I didn't-
He interrupted, did not allow him to finish his answer.
Let him finish.
All right, we're at 13:26:38. We're going to go back to 13:26:37. See the sequence of events?
okay.
All right?
Yes.
All right. So, when you fired the shot at Mr. Olson, index shooting, you were staring at center mass, and then your hand with the gun went straight across over the back of that seat.
It appears to. It may have gone between them. I'm not sure.
Okay. But that's what we see here. When I gave you the example of coming straight across, right?
That was your description, yes, sir.
But that's what we see in the video, right?
Like I indicated, I don't know if I went over the seat or between the seats. I don't know.
Okay. But the seat's right here, seat height, and if you're sitting, you just went right over the seat. Or here, right?
I can't see the seat in the video, sir. I don't know.
But we've seen the photographs, so if you go straight across, that's what you did, right center
He's
mass.
answered the question, I'm gonna object.
I think it's been answered.
He's just trying to.
I've asked if he's seen the photographs, and he has when he's shown the photographs of the seats and locations where the popcorn was. So I was just following up on that, Judge.
Okay.
All right, thank you. You know where the seats are in relation to your seat, right?
Yes, I do. I don't know how high they are in front of me, though.
All right. So I'm going to ask it one last time, then I'm going to sit down, okay?
Just,
When you fired-
How many times are we gonna do this?
One, then I'm going to sit down. That's all I'm going to do.
It's been asked and answered, that's my
As a trier of fact, the only thing minutely left in my imagination is to ask, did the seat get hit?
Well, there you go.
I-
Actually, there's going to be two, but that's going to be one of them. All right, so the seat was not hit with the bullet, right?
I did not shoot the seat, no, sir.
And you indicated that Mr. Olson was a very tall, lanky guy, right?
Yes, I did.
6'4".
I had no idea at that
Taller
time.
than you.
Yes.
Judge, I'm not going to have any further questions. If you just give me 2 or 3 minutes, I'll shut everything down and I'll move my equipment.
All right.
Thank you.
Is that a board exhibit up there?
No, ma'am, actually, it's mine.
It is an exhibit. It's mine.
Oh, that's right, we did get it.
I think it is.
I apologize.
Yeah, it's a 200.
All right, I'll hand it back to the clerk, then.
Mr. Reeves, I'm betting you're not done yet.
Okay, I figured.
Just a guess, but.
I'm gonna need that exhibit. The exhibit that we just gave. Statement? Yes. Sorry about that.
And Judge, as far as state's exhibit marked for ID C, that'll be coming in the state's case in chief.
I anticipated that, I think we
Yeah.
mentioned that
Yeah.
earlier. And I'm not going to take a break at this time, I'm thinking, based on the cross, the redirect.
I've only got a few-
Lengthy.
I've only got a few questions.
Just give me a second, Mr. Escobar. I apologize to you. I got sidetracked.
Mr. Reeves, while he is getting me set up there, let me, if I may, Your Honor, ask some questions. In looking again at defendant's exhibit number 35, which is entered as the purported transcript of the tape of Detective Proctor and yourself, I want to direct your attention to page 79, just so we can make sure that we have, from your perspective, a clear record. I'm going to direct you to two areas. It's on page 3 on the very bottom, but it's directed to page 79 in the paragraph. Line number 34. It says, "Well, I tell you the damn truth." Did you say the word damn?
I think it was dang.
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 I will
think so.
correct that on mine. And then this was I think a statement that was read by the prosecutor on cross-examination, page 4 at the very bottom, page 80 in the paragraph, line 26. Did you say, "Hey, that's got some ice in it"? Or
Yes,
"Hell, that's got some ice in it"?
I think it was hay.
Hey,
Yes,
could you
sir.
tell the court what was happening at that time so that we can have some context of what was the ice?
Kind of guess.
The sheriff's office had gotten me something to drink because I was thirsty and my mouth was dry. And when they brought it to me, it was covered in ice. And then
Took it out of the cooler.
I assume they took it out of the cooler. Then I couldn't undo it, so they had to open the top for me.
Okay, now, let's go to, I'm going to show you what's been admitted into evidence as defendant's exhibit number 26, and ask you to take a look at that photo and see if you recognize that particular photo.
I do, yes.
Do you see a phone in that photo? And just to make sure that we've got the correct JPEG number, the JPEG number on that photo is 206-0495 JPEG. Do you see a phone on the floor?
Yes, sir, I do.
Was that your phone?
No, sir, it wasn't.
And was that phone directly between your legs as you sat there in seat number 9 of that top row?
Yes, sir, the photograph depicts it in between my feet, but to the right. When I first noticed it would be closer to my left shoe, which would have probably been an estimate of 10 or 12 inches further to the left.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about that. When did you first notice that particular phone in that location?
At some point after I was checking my face for injuries, putting my glasses back on, this sort of thing here, a deputy came over, and at some point I noticed the phone on the floor, so I pointed it out to the deputy.
Let's talk a little bit about that. So, shots fired,
Yes, sir.
you put the gun on your
On your in my lap.
knee. What do you do next?
I check and see That's when I discovered that my glasses are askew, and I'm assessing for injuries. I don't know how bad I'm hurt
Okay, so how are you checking for injury?
with my hands.
And what are you doing with your hands?
I'm sorry?
What are you doing with your hands?
Well, I'm rubbing my face, putting my glasses back on.
Okay. And do you look down?
Right. At some point, I look down and see the phone, yes.
And where was that phone? In between your legs?
It was in between my legs, yes.
Going to show you what's been marked as defense exhibit number 33 and ask you, is this the phone that you saw between your legs after you had fired the shot?
Yes, sir, it appears to be.
No further questions.
All right. Now I think we're done. Mr. Reeves, you can have a seat.
Thank you.
We are today, remember I have a 9 o'clock phone call, take me an hour in the morning, so we'll reconvene at 10 o'clock in the morning.
We need a witness list from the government.
Okay, is that going to be forthcoming? 10 o'clock tonight, or?
Yeah. I was going to say, Judge, I'll call it 11:30.
All right, then, unless we have anything else we need to address, we'll be in recess in this matter until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Then I guess I'll see the.
Before you leave, I've got to make sure that this exhibit gets back to the clerk.
Yes, please, I'm sure she.